So, like I said, my name's Randall. I'm the owner of Red Marketing. We specialize in Google problems. If you guys have a specific question about your merchant center, about the things that are going on, I'll happily answer them. If not, we can kind of go through a merchant center and I can kind of point out some things that would be issues or causing issues for those particular people. Go ahead. What can I answer for you?
Hi, yeah, nice to meet you. I'm Christian, and I have a
Nice to meet you
couple
too.
of questions
Of
regarding
course.
GMC. I'm a foreigner, so I'm not from the US, right? And I have my address and all of that from Anytime Mailbox. Regarding about First of all, regarding about that address, do we need to put it like the unit plus the number of that address because it's not a PO box, it's like a unit number, right? And I didn't put it like that number because I was afraid it could have potential problems and all of that. But I have been suspended, yeah, it's been a while, months. I I would like to know first if that's the problem. I don't know if you want to address the question by question, or do you want me to?
We'll start with that one because that's a
Okay.
really good question. And I think a lot of people are going to struggle with that exact thing that you're kind of going through right there. Okay. So the first thing you need to look at is if you go into your merchant center and you click on the business information, what information did you put in there? Did you put in your PO box information or your suite number information, or did you put in the country that you live in?
I put the Anytime Mailbox, the unit number,
Okay.
but it was not the unit. It was not like I put the unit number. I didn't put that unit number neither on the GMC, neither on my page, just in case, you know.
Okay. So my biggest thing here is the way we kind of do work and the way that we're getting around these suspensions quickly and effectively is we want to give Google the least amount of information possible to get you verified. So there are no official policies with Google when it comes to addresses, phone numbers, or forms of communication. You can't point to one that says, hey, you have to have these things. Generally in the industry, we look for what we call the best practice of 2 out of 3. So Google wants to see a phone number, an email, and an address. That address is a very particular part that we generally try and avoid when somebody is facing a suspension. We'll even in most cases remove the address from the website entirely. So that would be a very strong recommendation for you. Remove that address, and then in your merchant center, if you don't have verifiable information to who you are essentially. So if it's just like a virtual address or a PO box, you're going to have a really hard time getting around that misrepresentation in there. So we consider that a fatal flaw. If you were to sign up with services for us, the first thing we would do is we would cancel out that Google Merchant Center and open up a new one with your personal address underneath the business information. That information right there is only between you and Google. Nobody else has access to it.
Okay, but what about even though if I am not from the US?
Yeah, exactly. So there's no qualms or worries with Google saying, "Hey, I live in Canada or I live in Singapore or I live wherever you live in the world," and then just only selling to the United States.
Okay, so my GMC, the creation of that new GMC should be like from my country, right? Selecting that I am.
Yes, correct. And then when you go to putting your business information in there, just put your personal address. It's the easiest thing to verify, and then you might suffer from a soft suspension where you just have to click the verify button, and then you would go ahead and verify a payment profile. Again, make sure that the country matches when you verify that payment profile. You might have to submit a piece of paperwork or a driver's license, and then you should be good to go and ready to rock and roll, man.
Oh, so that could be the issue well for
That could be
everyone
the
that is
whole
not a
problem for you,
foreign,
seriously.
yeah.
Is there
Because
anything else I can answer for you?
yeah, what about the taxes on shipping? I have seen like there is a new option on GMC.
What's the new option?
Taxes on shipping instead of just taxes. So I don't know
So
if that.
since you live outside of the United States, what you want to do is just go ahead and leave all those states selected as blank and then hit save.
Okay, but I mean, I don't know if that this could be like a thing because my LC is from Wyoming, right? So since it's going to be connected to Google Ads, doesn't it have to? tax on the state that my LLC is open, something like that?
So I'm definitely not an accountant, right? But as
Okay.
far as I understand it, you want to leave it in the Google Merchant Center as blank. And then if you collect taxes on the backside of Shopify, you would totally be fine and within scope there.
Okay. One last question. I had the accepted payment method. I have the Apple Pay on review, pending review, but on the backend on Shopify, it's like good to go. I have tried on the checkout that it's working. So what could be that problem?
So was it just Apple Pay exclusively?
Yes, because I have Google Play and I have Shop Pay available, but it has been like pending review for weeks. So
Yeah, that's going to be really hard for me to answer, particularly just about Apple Pay. You could have just went for an additional review there, and they might want some more information. I would look into your mailbox and just make sure they're not trying to reach out. And if you got a case number or anything, email their support, ask them for an update, okay? But I don't have a whole lot of guidance about Apple Pay.
okay, okay. So finally, well, in conclusion, since I have a final review because now it shows like I have a final review in like a week or so. So you will recommend just creating a new account from my country, select time from that country, and all of that. Just put in my info.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to go about it.
What about deleting the GMC? Do I have to create a new Google Ads account too? Because I am
Oh,
advertising verification. I have the advertising verification on Google Ads with my
is your
LLC.
Google Ads account suspended for terms and conditions? Were they linked?
They were linked. It was first the GMC and then the ads, but I have did the advertising verification and it's not suspended anymore.
Okay, cool. So unlink your GMC from that Google Ads account. And then once you have a good GMC, good to go, then you can just link it into your Google Ads account that you have.
Okay, so I could link with two different email, like because I'm going to have a new
Yeah.
Gmail and then
Yeah. You just have to invite whatever email is associated into that Google Ads account. And then when you go to do the linking, you have to be in that email that is associated to that Google Merchant Center.
okay. So finally, I'm sorry for too much questions, but that address from my new GMC account is going to be from my country, but on my website, do I need to have an address? You told me like,
I would recommend removing your address for now and trying to go about it that way. If that doesn't seem to work, then I would bring back in your Wyoming address, but I would make sure that that Wyoming address is completely off of the site everywhere you can find it for now. That would be my recommendation if we took you on as a client. That would be the first thing we would try.
okay, but if that doesn't work, I do have to create a new GMC, but this one to be on the United States, right?
No, no, no. So you can have like a business outside of the United States that's running a business inside of the United States. There are kind of like some setup and intricacies there, but I think that you would be totally fine just following that process. That's a really good avenue to go down. I think it would really get you far.
Okay, okay, yeah, that will do. If I have another question, I will ask you right away at the end. Thank you, son.
Awesome. Perfect. Who's next? Who else can we answer questions for about Google Merchant Centers? I think there's a raise your hand feature in here. This is also my first time using this app, so bear with me a little bit.
Hey Randall, I have a question for you that I think would be a benefit for everybody. So I know obviously for people located in the USA, I know you just kind of touched on it. A lot of questions about the addresses, especially being in Canada or in Europe. Those are probably the two areas where I've seen a lot of questions popping around. So when you have a Canadian corporation with a Canadian address and just an American EIN, would you mind just kind of explaining for all of us kind of the best practice in terms of the address? I know you mentioned the three things that Google kind of looks for. But just to kind of clarify on Canada address versus US address if you are selling in the US.
So Google doesn't care about where you are located geographically and where you want to sell geographically. So if you're located in Canada and you want to sell exclusively to the United States, Google's totally on board with that. What they're not on board with is having you misrepresent yourself and saying, oh, I live in the United States, or I have an office space here in the United States. And that's what you're essentially saying when you put that information inside of those forms or inside of the Google Merchant Center. You're saying, hey, I'm located in the US. So if you're in Canada, what you would want to do is you would want to put your Canadian information inside of the Merchant Center when you're setting it up. And then depending on how you feel about sharing that personal information with that address, then you can also put it on the website. It does raise your trust factor with Google as far as we can tell, and gives you a little bit more of an advantageous benefit. But again, it's not a requirement. So you don't have to have the addressing listed there. If you have an American EIN, that really just comes down to tax information. You don't have to share that with Google unless you're going to use it for advertiser verification inside of a Google Ads account or trying to verify a payment profile. But you're still going to have a hard time verifying that payment profile with just an EIN if you don't have a verifiable address. And all verifiable address is something along the lines of something that Google can connect to you or your business. So if we sign up for a virtual address with a company somewhere, it's going to be very hard for you to get verifiable information such as a utility bill, a lease document, to give to Google and say, yeah, I actually have an address there. There are
addresses where I think a lot of people, including myself when I first started, get hung up because, you know, some people I've seen in the past use their Canada address on the back end and then their virtual address on the front end. And I know there's a lot of kind of discrepancies that can get kind of brought into the mix. So thank you for answering that, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And then just so we're also very clear, Shopify, the address information you put into Shopify, that doesn't get portrayed to Google. So if you wanted to like set it up inside Shopify with your EIN and your virtual address, I know people have had success doing that. I'm not in full fact that you're dealing with big tech companies who spend billions of dollars collecting information about who we are. They're going to know whether or not that's actually an address you've used before, are currently using, or if it's a virtual address that over 1,000 businesses also use.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, man.
Of course. Hey guys, just welcome in. We're answering questions about Google Merchant Center. So if you have a question you want to answer, you can just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll have a quick little conversation around it. Well, we've talked about addresses so far. Well, Jonah, I think I saw you. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, sorry. I rose my hand and then dropped it really quick. So to your point about the address, so far I have not had an issue with the suspension. It's been up and running just a little over a month, so fingers are crossed there. But so are you saying for a virtual address, it's better to not even have that on the website?
Generally speaking, yes. I've seen students or I've seen other people outside of this organization have success with it and then kind of have an issue with it down the road. Depending on who you signed up with that with, you might be good if you're one of the first 10 or 15 people to use that address. But as that business that's selling these virtual addresses starts to grow or starts to use that particular address more and more and more, the chances get higher that this address is getting reported to Google more and more and more for all their different product sets. So it's going to cause an issue for you down the road.
Got it.
If you have one that's kind of a little bit more verifiable, generally these are ones that have like a suite number instead of like a PO box number.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably be good for a long time.
Okay. What's the harm of just not having an address at all on the website?
There's not any major real harm because again, Google doesn't have an official policy on what these requirements are. Generally speaking, it's just kind of accepted inside of the people who do this work, like myself and a couple of other companies, that you need 2 out of 3 forms of these things: phone number, email, contact information, such as an address, on your website to really raise what Google calls the trust factor with you and your website. They're just trying to make sure that you are who you say you are, and then having a thing like a virtual address on there can really be detrimental, but it also might not be the only issue. I've seen customers and clients get by with having one. It's just generally contact information such as an address on your website to really raise what Google calls the trust factor with you and your website. They're just trying to make sure that you are who you say you are, and then having a thing like a virtual address on there can really be detrimental, but it also might not be the only issue. I've seen customers and clients get by with having one. It's just generally speaking, it's not a good practice. We want to work on best practices so that way you stay safe in the long run.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Of course. This is done again. So we had a question come in here in chat. It says, "Hey Randall, how are you? I was hit with a misrep for 3 months and then got finally unsuspended. When I changed everything to my home country address, now I am suspended again, but it's not misrep. I think it's a website problem. My products are limited and it says my website needs improvement. What would you recommend to overcome it?" I would take a few moments, look around at some of the other websites that have been demoed inside of High Ticket. Another big thing you can really do is look at your products. Literally just go to Google, type in one of the products you're trying to sell, go to the shopping tab, and then look at a store that's selling one of those products on Google Shopping. You'll see a lot of similarities, and then you'll see a lot of differences. Generally, when you get hit with a website needs improvement, Google is saying that it's kind of lacking in some retrospective way. It might be information. It might be that your products don't have enough detail. It could be that your product descriptions, you just generically put in the information that you got there from your supplier. Taking that supplier information and even running it through something as simple as ChatGPT would really go a long way to help you there. If you have a follow-up question in chat, go ahead and share it. I'll happily answer it for you. So kind of again, guys, the biggest thing that's happening in this group right now is a misrepresentation suspension. And if you read through that policy, Google goes in to very late detail. They do this ambiguously for a lot of reasons. So when reps come in and view your store, they get to make a lot of decisions about your store that are maybe a little misguided, maybe a little bit different here, a little bit different there. What you want to do is just try and be honest and transparent about what you're doing. Google knows what drop shipping is, right? Google knows what it's like to open up an online store, get some suppliers, and then send products over to customers. If they didn't want you doing it, it wouldn't be a thing inside of their ecosystem. You're essentially taking on the role of Amazon in this case. So as customers, we know what it's like to go to Amazon. We know what it's like to buy products from Amazon. We generally know how long they're going to take for those products to get shipped to us. We also know what the return features look like on Amazon. So you need to make sure that your policies are good, that you're sharing valuable information. You need to make sure that you have good contact information that can be followed up and vetted. And then those are just the best practices to kind of get you out of suspension. Because I already changed all my descriptions with ChatGPT when trying to overcome misrep. Can it be because I do not have an address listed on my website? The reason I do not have address listed is because in GMC, I put my home address and I am from overseas. No, if it was an addressing issue, you would have got hit with a misrepresentation or not have been able to come out of the misrepresentation. The website needs improvement. On fitness, you have to be very careful about the health things that you say on your website. Google is very worried about getting sued more than they already are. So even some product descriptions in which your supplier is saying, hey, there's these health benefits here related to our product, you can't share those on your website and be a part of Google Shopping for the simple fact that you're not referencing any studies around these health benefits. So my recommendation there would be to go through your website, and anywhere that you might have like a health benefit or this could improve cardiovascular or cold plunge tubs, really help with muscle tension, you want to try and distance yourself from that verbiage, or you want to try and change it entirely. Of course, you're welcome. Is there any other questions from the group while we're here?
Yeah, I came up with one question about product related on the description. Is it okay to have like a user manual hyperlink it on the back end of our Shopify stuff?
So you can do this if you've taken a user manual, downloaded it, and uploaded it as a file to your Shopify store. Having a third-party link go to like a manufacturer website with those manuals is not recommended for many different reasons. We don't want people to pull off of the store is a very good one. Another good one is generally Google will kind of let this slide. But if, let's just say down the road, that manufacturer decides to change their linkage and now the manual is located at xyandz.com instead of abc.com, you now have a broken link on your website, and you're going to spend a lot of time trying to find that link before you realize what has happened. So the best practice there is to download whatever that manual is, upload it as a file, and then just put included download link directly from your store inside of the product description.
Okay, got it. What about the YouTube videos on the descriptions? Is that a go-to or?
No, those are totally fine. You can have YouTube videos. Just be mindful of the content around them. Again, like for example, the health spa and fitness, a lot of suppliers put in health-related benefits inside of that. You just want to make sure that you're not going to violate any of the policies with what's being said inside of that YouTube video. And you might want to make sure that it might even be a separate description when you're uploading it to Simprosis, so that way that doesn't attempt to upload to your merchant center.
Oh, okay. Also, is it okay to change the metadata, the alt text of the image from the product description, to name it your store or something like that, just to be different?
You want to be careful that you don't get hit with keyword stuffing. What you want to do is you want to take the alt text of that product description or of that image, and you can definitely put in here the name of the product and then your store name, and you would probably be okay, but I wouldn't just put in your store name only.
Okay, yeah, sure. But that is a good thing to, for Google not to see like we're copying another page or something like that, right?
Yeah, no, they're not pulling that up when they come to your store and they're doing a review. Generally, when they come to your store and they do a review, is they land on the homepage, they look around, they read through that text, then they'll move on. And if you have any social badges at the bottom of your website, they're going to check those to make sure that they're not broken links.
Okay, but
yeah, of course. Once they're done checking the social links, then they're going to move on to checking your policies out. They want to make sure your policies match to what you've listed inside of the merchant center, basically verbatim. So we have to make sure that those match really well. Then depending on how far down the checklist they've made it, they're also going to go check out a product or two. Once they've checked out the product, they've kind of completed their review, and then they make the determination.
Okay, so you mentioned the social media. It does not matter like how many followers do I have or when was my last post, right?
No, you just want to make sure you do have at least a little bit of content on there, and I mean literally like a post or two, and you're totally fine. I wouldn't like link to an Instagram page where you have no photos whatsoever, because then it's not good. Okay, you want to definitely have at least a post or two there.
Sure. The address has to be on the social media tools. That's not.
No, that doesn't matter.
Okay.
They're just looking to make sure that it's linked correctly, actually.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Great question. Guys, I saw a couple people join. We're here answering questions about Google Merchant Centers and the suspensions that happen around them. If you have any questions, you can either feel free just to join the conversation, raise your hand so I know who might be talking. If not, I'm just here willing to answer anything you have. Back in the chat. Also, since now I am unsuspended, what would you recommend not to do in terms of website changes in order not to get suspended again? That's a little bit more challenging. you just want to make sure that you set up some really good practices, right? You want to go in and you want to make sure that whenever you go to upload a product, that you've gone through the product description. You want to make sure that you've gone through the photos. Also, another big thing, a lot of people make a mistake of, okay, my merchant center is good to go. I never have to look at this page again. You want to go in there probably about once a week and check up on your merchant center. You'll notice sometimes that products have been dropped off. If you get too many of those drop-offs, that can lead to a suspension. You want to always be kind of checking what the competition is doing. Our general rule is if somebody else can do it, you can do it. So again, go back to your products, search them up on Google, see what your competitors are doing. You just don't want to make too many dramatic changes too quickly. Small incremental steps, especially for at least the first 6 months. After that, the reviews get a lot less in terms of how often Google comes by. They might only come by once every 3 months then, whereas during that 6 months coming out of a suspension, they're coming by at least once a month, if not every other week. So slow and steady wins the race. The tortoise always wins, not the hare. So since you have so many products, here in chat, they said, can I add products? I normally have more than 300 products, but I archived most of them. And now I have like 70. Again, slow and steady here. Okay. So I would start with maybe only adding 50 products back. Let that season for at least 2 or 3 days. Make sure they all get approved. None of the products go into limitation, and then go ahead and maybe add 75 products the next time. I definitely wouldn't recommend just dropping all 300 products. For example, if all 300 of those have a GTIN issue, you're going to be over like the 15% threshold, and you're going to suffer a suspension again because it's just too many product issues too quickly. Another question here in chat is, one of my suppliers has a warning for its product. Should I include that in my product description? It says the product can expose you to chemicals, including, I'm not going to murder that chemical, which is known into the state of California to cause cancer. That's also a really good question. What we recommend here is just citing the Prop 23 link, which I'm sure your supplier kind of referenced to you. If that's the case, go ahead and do so. We don't see generally an issue with that. You just want to make sure that link stays active, because if it's a broken link going to a third-party website, you're going to run into issues there. And depending on how your store is laid out, you want to make sure that this warning is kind of separated from your product description. So even in Shopify, if you just add like a rich text to these particular products, you can go in there, make a product group, add a rich text into your online store about these products, and then put the warning in there with the link to Prop 23. You're good to go. Of course. Sean, did you have another question, or was your hand just still raised from the last time?
No, I have another question. Thanks. Real quick, back to the policy. So when I set up my GMC account originally, the guidance was to duplicate my general policy that is on my store. So that's what I did. However, my suppliers, their policies are very, very different, like their shipping policy and return policy. So I waited to get my GMC approved, and then I went back into my store and I added specific shipping and return policies to each of my product pages. I'm hoping that's not an issue. My general policy page will still match my GMC, but I didn't know how else really to do that, because I felt like I absolutely had to have the specific, supplier specific policies.
So the best practice here, kind of in our eyes, is to write your own policy that applies to the strictest rule set of your suppliers. So for example, if you have a supplier who says, hey, we only accept returns for 10 days, and you have another supplier who says, hey, we accept returns for 30 days, then you want to write your return policy saying, hey, we only accept returns for 10 days, because that's the stricter metric here. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to return this, and it's 20 days later, and it just happens to apply to the supplier who accepts returns 30 days later, then cool. You send them a message, hey, look, we'll happily kind of go through the return process. This is a one-time offer for you. Here you go. But again, we're going back to that idea of that you're Amazon in this case, and Amazon doesn't have different return policies for different manufacturers. You want to just set up a policy as though you are the store owner, you are Amazon, and that you want to go through and say, hey, this is the rules that apply to my store, so on and so forth. Not this rule applies here, that rule applies there, and that rule applies here. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does. So once I then go and remove those supplier specific policies from the product pages and update my store policies, obviously then will I have to redo that then in GMC, or since it's linked? Do you know what I'm saying?
So you might have to go back into your GMC. So depending on how you set up your policies in GMC, are you suspended right now or no?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Depending on how you linked your not linked your policies, depending on what you said on your policies in GMC, it's my opinion, you might actually be like in violation right now. Right. So what I would do is I would go in there, and in the return and refund section of GMC, you can see what are the standard items that you put in there. Right. So like, is it a 15-day return window? Do I have a restocking fee? This, that, the other thing. And then I would make my policies aligned to that. If you need to be more strict, then update your policies first on Shopify and then go back to your GMC and edit your policies. You're not essentially actually linking them. So if you change one over here, it will change the other one over there. You have to manually do each side.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Of course. Another question here in chat. Right now I'm using free Shopify theme, but as I will make sales, I want to scale and use paid themes that look more appealing. Will changing website theme cause a suspension immediately? No, that shouldn't cause a suspension at all. Just to kind of like safeguard yourself when you do change your theme, I would just go ahead and pause your ads for about an hour or so. Go in, update your theme, make sure all of your links work while your ads are paused, because we don't want to be trying to send traffic to broken links. Sometimes that does change with like the paging structure or the hierarchy of Shopify. Once you verify that everything's still kind of working the way you expect, you can go back in, just turn your ads back on, and you should totally be fine.
And then,
Christian, how are you? What question can I answer for you?
yeah, I have a couple of one too. Regarding closing the GMC account, is there a special way to close that GMC? Do we have to unlink something inside the GMC, like deleting our personal stuff, or just click on the button close account and that's it?
The only recommendation I have here is if you have a Google Ads account linked to that GMC, I would go ahead and unlink that first, but then you can just go into the little gear icon, and I think it's account settings, and close my GMC, and then you have to verify you want to close it.
Okay, and what about Google Console and Google Analytics? Do we have to delete them too, or?
No, actually that will all kind of like re-update, but generally those things are linked into your actual Shopify, not into your merchant center. They just kind of piggyback off of it once it's linked to your Shopify store.
Okay, so yeah, okay. Oh, so for my other question, it was about SimProcess. Since it is feeding SimProcess through GMC, I have like thousands of, well, not thousands, hundreds of products, but some of them are only fed through SimProcess to GMC. Do I have to take care of those other products, like draft them or something like that?
So I didn't quite understand your question. Could you go ahead and tell me
Okay.
one more time? You have a bunch
Yeah,
of
sure.
products and services that are archived. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I have like let's say I have 100 products fit fruiting process to GMC, but I do have other products that are not fit fruiting process, right? Do I have to take care of those products in order to be safe for the GMC verification, something like that?
No, why are they not linked into some process? That was the question.
They do not have GTIN.
Okay. So, depending on the products, you can either get like a GTIN, an MPN, which stands for manufacturer part number. Depending on where your suppliers are located and where they sell, they might have an ISBN, which is like International Serial Business Number or something like that. So if a product is getting shipped across seas, it definitely has to have an ISBN legally. I would reach out to your suppliers, check for those things. And Simprocess also gives you 3 different levels to choose from. When you're going through each product, you can choose like, I have a GTIN, I have an MPN. This is a custom manufactured part. I don't have any of this information. If you don't truly have it, your suppliers are no, or our serial numbers are 0001, 0002, then just choose that third option that says, I do not have this information. And then you might even be able just to get them posted without any of that information in there. I know we helped a simulator company recently here inside of the group, and they had a whole bunch of products that were like that. And they're very unique, and there's only like a handful of people selling them. So it was totally fine to go that way.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Of course. Again, here in chat, also about my Google Ads, my account is registered in the US. Can I use a payment method from another country, or should it be strictly Mercury credit card, and can it be a virtual card? Anything with the word virtual and Google does not go together. Google does not like virtual whatsoever. You might be able to get away with it, but you're most likely, from what you're talking about here, going to suffer in your Google Ads account from what's called a suspicious payment activity violation, and then you'll be suspended for such. If you're going to have your Google Ads account registered to your business here in the United States and verified with your EIN paperwork, and we're able to use your address that you have associated to your business, you absolutely need to have a card in that business's name, most likely located here in the United States, so that way you don't have any further issues going forward. If you're unable